Hello. tell me when to start. You have about 1 minute to start, right? Tell me when. Okay. Friends, could you please take your seats? Okay, I guess we have how many seconds before start? Oh, exactly. Okay, I'm Boris Weissman. I'm outgoing Vice President of Tech Users Group. According to our rules, the new Vice President takes office at AGM, annual general meeting on Sunday, so I can present to you Eric, who is going to chair today's session, and he is Vice President-elect. And as a Vice President, I have an honor to open this conference. For the third time, we are meeting in Kerala. I think it's the record, and it's great. And the previous 2 times were fantastic. And from, I already have seen in the workshop, in the reception yesterday, in the program, both technical program and cultural program is going to be fantastic as well. I'm going to say that most of this is because of great work by STM Docs, who is the main sponsor of this conference, and the organizing committee. I want to thank all of you for making all this possible, including those who are now remotely, Carl and Sophia, who I hope watch this through YouTube. And I also would like to thank our sponsors. Besides STM, it's the user groups, Dante and Tech Users Groups, and TUG. It's Elsevier, Google, Overleaf, and Serdi. Some of the representatives of these groups are here. And thank you for your really generous sponsorship and generous help. We wouldn't be able to do anything without you, and it's very much appreciated. A couple of technical things. I was asked to tell you to please switch off your mobile phones or put them in the vibrating regime or whatever. We are not in theater where they will just throw you out for buzzing phone, but still, please do. Second, for those who are remote, if you are watching us, there is a chat. You can ask the questions or comments in the chat, and if time permits, we will ask them here. And with this, I would like to give the baton to Eric, who is the chair of today's session. And Eric, please go ahead. And, I forgot to say. Okay, officially, Tech Users Group meeting of 2025 is open.
I'm Erik Nijnhuis. I will be your session chair for this morning. And we will start with the talk of Rob Schrouwen from the Netherlands. Rob is based in the Netherlands. He's currently a VP, Data Platform Strategy, Research Data Platform at Elsevier. And he will taking his questions after the presentation. Veel succes.
Dankjewel. Can everybody hear me well? If not, then raise your hand. It sounds a bit weird here. So indeed, thank you, Eric. I'm Rob. I've been with Elsevier since 1991. I'm based in Amsterdam, and I'm really honored to kick this off today. So I joined in 1991, as I said, and before that I was a mathematician. And for a long time my role in Elsevier was the chief content architect. And it's really great to be back in Trivandrum. I've always loved to be in Trivandrum. It's been a long time, so really great to be back. Actually, I've been coming to India since 1994. And, well, I can tell you endlessly about all my adventures in India. And I can also tell you endlessly about my grandchildren. So I have 2 grandchildren. One is 13, Emily, and one is 8. And allow me to start with a small digression. So there was a time that my granddaughter was 6 years old, and then she said to her teacher, I have 7 grandmothers, or 7 oma's, as we say in Dutch. And then the teacher said, impossible, you can't have 7 grandmothers. And then she became angry. She said, I said to prove it, and then she produced this. So this is a drawing that my granddaughter made when she was 6, and we can learn a lot about it from it. So first, what you can see here is that she had a really clear idea about definition or policy. So she counted the great-grandmothers as grandmothers too. So you see, that's already one important thing. Secondly, in order to prove that she has 7 grandmothers, she furnished every grandmother with an encircled number. As you would say, a unique OMA ID. In other words, she created a registry of all the OMAs, and she presented that to the teacher in the form of a family tree, a knowledge graph, I would say. So she didn't number the grandfathers, you see. So she really focused on the task at hand. So she didn't make a mistake that we always make in our company. When we go about it, we also do more than we need. Then we can make errors. No, she didn't do that. Only the grandmothers are numbered. And the fact that grandfathers, or men even, appear in this picture at all is only to provide evidence that these people are grandmothers. Because in order to be a grandmother, you have to be the mother of somebody. So, and then what you don't know, but this is interesting, that the oma number 6, so in the Netherlands, children usually say oma to their grandmother, but this oma, she is always addressed as Hetty. So I said, well, why is the box saying oma? You never call her oma, why didn't you put in Hetty? And then my granddaughter said, well, I didn't know how to spell Hetty. Is it with a Y or with IE? And there too we can learn a lot from what we would do in Elsevier. We would try to capture things, all the fields that we can. And then people can make errors, and then you get corrections about those errors. You make a whole industry about corrections, even though the field wasn't needed in the first place. So really by this she showed clear focus. And Hetty herself, if you would see this picture, then she would be amused if she saw this. But if she would see her own name misspelled, it would ruin her whole experience. So it's even as an adverse effect. So by now, probably, you will are believing that my granddaughter has 7 grandmothers. But it is not correct. So I'm here next to Oma 1, that's me, and my mother is missing. So the recall, as we would say, is only 7 divided by 8. So it's not perfect, but it doesn't matter because everybody got trust in the data, and this trust is based on transparency, clear policies, and total focus on the business problem at hand. So that is where we are too in Elsevier, because what we have come to realize is that the most important asset that we have is our knowledge graph. And a knowledge graph is not really, of course, omas or grandmothers, but it is about the entities that we have. And those entities, they are the articles, so 100 million articles from other publishers, 23 million full-text articles from Elsevier itself, 100 million patents, 40 million researchers, 100,000 organizations that are carefully curated. All these things form the nodes in our knowledge graph, and they are connected together. So all this is highly accurate, and it comes about in our data platform. So that is what I'm associated with in my day-to-day work with our data platform. And the way this data platform works in a nutshell, I've drawn it here in these 5 steps. But you can also look at it in this picture of me when I got my PhD long ago. So the first thing is that you have to have evidence. So we treat all the things that come in as evidence. So the photograph itself is the evidence. Then the next step, so we harvest that from many places. So articles, you know, many articles we get from many places. We get it from the author, we get it from Medline, we get it from... So we have a lot of duplication there. So what we then do is we extract entities. In this case, we recognize faces. In my pictures, the same thing. You recognize entity. And in the old world, we would used to call this, we structure our XML files, or we structure our text. It's really to extract the entities, to identify the author names, the title, and God knows what. And when then it's done, we match and cluster them all together. That is really the heart of our platform. And after that, so for each node, we have lots and lots of properties. Not all consumers want or are allowed to get all the properties, so we create some kind of context view that is dedicated to them. Those are the steps that we have. And all this is rather probabilistic. You can also see it in the picture. For instance, is the head on the photo, on the painting, is that also an entity or not? The algorithm could be wrong. And maybe you think it's me that on the right-hand side, but that's my father, because this picture was in 1991, and I'm the guy on the second from the left. So this is a clip. And in generally speaking, all these things are heavily probabilistic. So this is what we do every day in the data platform. And for this, it is extremely important that we stay totally true to the source. And if we don't, we need to apply clear provenance to the data. So I think for many years, the vendors that we worked with, they thought they do a service. If, for instance, some page number is wrong, it says 38 in the article, it is 37 in PubMed, so maybe we need to replace it by 37. I think with that we have already ruined the entire knowledge graph. We need to be totally true to the source. We don't know this lookup of the PubMed. I don't know, many errors in PubMed too. So our accuracy is on the latest percentage point, so we need to be very precise. I don't know what this lookup, I can only accept a lookup if there is really clear measurement of the precision and recall of the lookup itself. And until then, we can better leave it the way it is in the article. And if you want to add it, then I think it should be separated with clear provenance to make a distinction that it was not the author who said it, but it was the copy editor who said it. I think now we overwrite things, and that has is one of the biggest problems in our platform. So what did we get there? What did we learn here? Slowly but surely we moved from what I would call markup to annotation. And I think that is one thing that I want to stress today in my talk. So annotation means making assertions about the document that happened. And we do those assertions in RDF, in the research of a resource descriptor format. And this way we can observe what I call the golden rules for data. So that's, as I said earlier, we always need to add provenance. And as a mathematician, I would say you have to have respect for zero or the empty set or null. When you do markup, it's really hard to mark up something that isn't there. We need to be able to mark up things that aren't there. So that is really important. The input is also grounded in time. Whenever we keep changing it and we destroy it. And I think everything should be understandable through a common vocabulary that everybody knows. Most importantly, we want to allow multiple opinions about the same thing. In our model with markup, you have only one possibility to say what it is. But no, we have many opinions. Maybe the author said that is this, maybe somebody else says it is that, and we want to have these things side by side so that in our platform we can make the right assertion based on the weight that we give to each evidence. I think when we look at document structuring, then all these things are really very hard because you do everything in the same place. That's why we have completely moved over to standoff annotation. The annotations are outside the file. and they are saying something about the text. So this is, I wish we could say that, make assertions about things in the LaTeX document, not in the XML document, but I don't know how to address it. There is no standard language to reach and identify, or maybe there is, and then I don't know that. You can prove me wrong after the meeting if you want to. More importantly, this whole thing about data structure that we did many years, it is based on everything being in one file, and it totally ignores that there is a big process going on all the way from the author to publication. Many players work on the document, and they don't do that all at the same time. So what you need is a format that allows this, that many people work at the same time. So, and what I like about that is that annotations are even more tagging than tagging. We have been using this word tag for an XML tag with angle brackets, but I think a tag that you stick onto it like a sticky note is far more like a tag than a tag. So I say we go from tagging to real tagging and put a sticky note onto it. And then you can have multiple sticky notes that say something about the same thing. Or you can make an assertion about things that overlap like this, which is not possible in XML, that you have things that are not sort of nested inside. All these things are easily possible if you do it on the outside. And we can add even more assertions over time. So that is important. So yeah, it's been a long journey. I'm privileged that I have been with this whole thing in Elsevier since for 30 years. So I joined that particular team in 1995. And I should pay tribute to all the people who already did that way before in the 1980s, who decided that we should go the way of SGML. I mean, there was a lot of debate at the time if that is really the right thing to do. And I have here some dates. I won't go through the entirety of the dates, all these milestones here. So one thing we did in 2015 is that we, you can't see it here because the dot is there, but in 2015 there is we had worked on what we called an enhanced reader. So on our main platform, Science Direct, one thing that we try to do is to improve the way you read an article. And we experimented with many things. It's also, I think, well, I'll come back to later on. At one point, we tried to embed a PDF on the page on Science Direct. And we hacked that PDF so that it became active and that you could click on authors that weren't tagged before. So that never really worked well. And we also tried the other way around to make the XML look much like the PDF. And then that also we didn't get there. My wish would be, I'm going to say that 20 times I think today, if you create a LaTeX file, that you would create an HTML file and a PDF file in one go, and they are more or less the same. If we can achieve that, then we are there. Now, I thought we were not there at all, but then I read in the program book, and I read this whole story from Radhakrishna, and I think, oh my God, maybe I'm telling something that is actually already long there, but I'm not, I think it's still not precisely there the way I want it. So that's good. So I thought, we are now in 2025, and I have this 30 years of experience in the articles or the content architecture, as it was called. So let me share with you then a number of reflections of what I've concluded, what we did, and maybe what we could have done better in all those years. I call them the reflections. And I have to watch the time, but there's a lot of reflection. Actually, it's pretty good. I can go on for hours on these reflections. So one thing, so I think, well, the first one is, so what did we say in the 1990s? So people had really profound ideas about what we wanted to do with the data. And I think still, some of them are still very important. So if you read that article from Radhakrishna, I think the draft is in the program book, and you see how important it is to preserve your digital archive. So I think to preserve your digital archive, of course, is really good. And you don't want to have the content and presentation so closely intertwined. So everybody is used to that HTML, CSS, that's fine. But I think we took it to the extreme. For instance, what we said was, the articles will appear in lots and lots of styles. That was what the vision was in the 1990s, early and end of 1980s. You have an article and then it's published like this, then it's published like that, then it's published like that. That never happened. So it was a nice idea, but it never happened. It just appeared in one style. So we also have lots and lots of reference styles. You have Vancouver style, I don't know, lots of style. But an article, it's one reference in an article. It has just always appeared in one or maybe more two different styles. So my conclusion is all that tagging, in fact, had no purpose. We don't need it in the matching and linking. We also need, it's only hard to present it in a PDF file or in a nice typesetting. It looked nice, but it was, I don't know if it was needed. And I'm here to say this a little bit provocatively, I think. So another example, what is, I think the DTD that we created was heavily influenced by people like myself who started in a role of a copy editor, desk editor as we call it. So at the time it was common that a desk editor would indicate where in the article a figure, a float should appear. So then we put in the time that it was still paper, we would put in figure 3 with a red circle around it, and then the typesetter would know this is whereabouts. So in our DTD we have CE float anchor. That is the place where the float should come in approximately. So yeah, that somehow allows us to give this indication. But we don't have anything like this for table column width, for instance. Table column width used to be the total remit of the typesetter at those times. So we didn't even think about saying how the table columns should behave. But now we see that's really a problem. And people in Elsevier have been sort of old. Oh, now we have LLMs, maybe if we can automate it. Oh, maybe for 20 years, 30 years, people have been trying to automate. But what they should have seen is that the DTD was wrong all along. We should be able to indicate this. And this is where we should. So we did do it for the float anchor, but we didn't do it for the table column or the math breaking. Two really, really hard problems. And everybody else realizes that, except us. For instance, if I do a lot in Confluence, I don't know if you know Confluence, I do all our documentation. Of course, it provides an option to adjust the table columns, and it will stay the way I like it. Those things should be possible, but they weren't possible. I think that these are kind of things where we made a mistake. People were even so pedantic about it, I would say, that, I mean, that were I don't want to say anything about my predecessor, but in the 1980s we had the predecessor of our DTD, and then there wasn't bold and italic in the DTD, but we had emphasis 1, emphasis 2 until emphasis 9, because those people said, look, emphasis, and they had this vision that you could also show the article when you swap around the it was just about the emphasis, not that it is bold or italic, that was just a style element. But I think nobody, and no author, nobody would really accept anyway that suddenly the bold and italic would swap around in their article. It's just a silly thought, I think, that was there. And then they said, yeah, no, but when it is italic, they should really, really indicate, for instance, E. coli, that is a genus name for a species. So we shouldn't say italic and italic around E. coli. We should say species and species. That's what we want to do. I think, well, that never worked, because how could we have a system in which everybody, if the author tells us that's fine, but I think to add that interpretation can only go wrong. So I think it's far better if we just do italic and then we annotate on the side, if we want to, because we didn't even use it, and say what it is. So that is how. Where we also said, number 2, yeah, we are going to republish the content in countless ways. So an article will also appear in a book, and it will appear there, and it will appear there. So that also really never happened. And if it happened, it wasn't the same article, it was another article, its own DOI, its own citation detail. So then you can take a copy, but it's not exactly the same file. And if you look at what the files look like today, they don't have all that metadata, because if you would put the data in, it wouldn't be republishable. So I think that makes these files completely useless. So I think that is another thing that was a good idea at the time, but we never used it. And then we were extremely dogmatic about HTML, XML first. So that means that if you have an XML file, from it you get both the online rendering and the PDF. And I already mentioned a few things that make that hard. Also relied on extremely heavy standardization. Now, I think in the end maybe it was good that we did that, otherwise we would never have been making any progress. But now all that is out of the way, you can wonder, is it really that important? I was yesterday reminded by Councillor that we introduced LaTeX first. There we already deviated this from it. I looked it up when it was. There was 2007. So that was 2 years after our last big generation, DTD5, was implemented. And I think that time, 2004, many people here in the audience are as old as I am and worked on those things too. I think in 2004-5, the things that we did then, we went from the sort of starting point of our electronic world to the, well, actually what is still there. That was a fantastic time to think back on all the things we achieved. But we did all those things, and now in hindsight you say, well, we didn't really exploit that so much. One thing that has become extremely hard, I come back to that on another slide, is that if we even want to have the tiniest change to our DTDs or schemas, then that is extremely complicated. So that is, and then another thing that I can repeat is that for us it's really no longer about the article, it is about the entire corpus. If you want to have this knowledge graph working, so my attention is to 100 million articles, not to this one single article that we're looking at. And therefore you want features that are no consumer of the data wants a new feature only sort of trickling in new articles. If it's also present in older articles, they want to see it there as well. So the thing we need to be able to do with all our standards is to support that, not by going back to all those files, redo them, but to add things to it after the fact. That is, those things were really sort of in another line. So all these things were in some sense true that we wanted it, but they never turned out to be so relevant. So another thing that I thought, I mean, you can probably all know the expression, you should eat your own dog food. Now, I think what is good about the LaTeX community, and that's a good thing, eat your own dog food, don't think that it is bad. So I think in the LaTeX community, eating one's dog food is one of the best. And then there is this whole community, there is the CTAN. I mean, I think that's all unrivaled in the world. And I think other people could, it's sad that not the whole world knows about it, because I think that's the best that is. So, but did I always use my own document? I was the chief content architect of Elsevier, and I was responsible for the Elsevier DTD. I also created documentation together with my colleagues. So these were 2 books, tag by tag, first for HTML and then for XML. The green one was 444 pages. Now, to be honest, I wouldn't even know how to do it in my own XML. Well, all I could do maybe is do it and then ask one of the vendors, who are many of are present here in this room, who do it for me. But I want to do these things myself, obviously. I have this book. And, so I think that there is no tooling that is widely available. It's really hard to write these things. Or should I write all my angle brackets in Notepad++? I don't know. I have no tooling. So, of course, we did that in LaTeX. The whole book project was done in LaTeX. I don't know that there is any other way. And to have another point about this, here at the bottom there is a snippet of one newsletter that I've been publishing. In Elsevier, there are many people subscribe to it. That has been around since 1996. And then is there, you see in blue, that is a 3rd order heading. Oh, yeah, again, I would say was the chief content architect of Elsevier. I'm telling everybody you have to be very, very precise on the tagging. But I have never, in all those 30 years, 29 years, coded that in Word as a third order heading. I just made it italic and blue over and over again, and this worked. So maybe this is sort of almost, so you could say the big disconnect. And actually, I've never got it to work in Word to have a heading that has run-on text instead of new paragraph. It works, but it's very hard, I think. So you say, well, no. Of course, it's better to have a third-order heading, but it has never in any way interfered with our ability to read those files or to deal with them. So I think that is somewhat overrated. So this has worked for all those years, and everybody was happy. So what would I do if I would write documentation again? Actually, I wouldn't know. So we have been trying to do that. We said, well, maybe it's fantastic to do it in Markdown. I like Markdown a lot. But then it's nice, it looks like, it can be quick. But actually, is it so nice? I don't know. You can't have a bulleted list in a table cell. Well, you can if you but before you know it, you're starting to write your HTML files in the way we used to create our own home pages in the 90s. I mean, that can't be the answer to things either. So there is no macro language whatsoever there. So if I want to make sure that a tag or a predicate, as we would say, let's say the title field, if that is clickable, it comes in the index, then I want to have a command that deals that for me, but there is nothing available. I can invent it myself, but that surely shouldn't be the way forward, that I am going to invent my own language to do something that everybody needs. And then there is something called MK Docs. It's quite beautiful. It gives you this whole website. But then every user of it needs to install a server. People are not allowed to do that if they're not an administrator. So I think that's simply not working. So that's why I think, so you could say, is then not obviously the conclusion that you want to do it in LaTeX again? And say, well, no, because what I don't get there is right away a fantastic, like say, Confluence space like construct, where all the things are also in a website. So if I could, with the same LaTeX file, do that, I would be in business right away. So I think that is, generally speaking, the thing that I would say. Here's another one. In fact, you could then say, yeah, should I eat my own dog food? No, I have never eaten that. It's a bit shameful maybe, but at the same time it was not really that relevant. Good, I have another reflection. So another thing was that it's nice that you, in an XML file, you have DTD schema. So what you can do is you can validate. And I think that's very important. I think that's also something that I think is missing in LaTeX, I don't know really good ways to have a markup language should always come with a way to make sure that what you want to have is valid. So what we did was, so I have a few comments to make about that. So first of all, we can be so proud about it. I also say, well, you can, a nice DTD available. But when was a DTD ever sufficient? So I'll tell you something about one tag in our DTD. It is one of my favorite tags. Is the CE crossrefs element with plural, okay? So this is a one-to-many link. So for instance, if you have figures 1 to 5, then you can make a link from the text figures 1 to 5 to all those 5 figures. So you have 5 destinations. And the way this works, and I was about to say nobody implemented it, but I know that there is one person here in the room who did implement is that there would be a drop-down list of all the 5 destinations. That was the mental model that you should have. And this drop-down list would be constructed from the labels of those targets. So if you have a figure, it's called figure 1, and you put it in the drop-down list, and 2, 3, so you pull it from the targets of those 5 cross-references. So in order to make that possible, there has to be a validation that whenever there is a cross-refs plural, with those 5 destinations, that all these tigers have labels. So you can't express that in the DTD, not possible. So therefore we always had a V2 for the person who is managing that for many, many years is also here in the room. So we need that on top of the DTD. So you can say DTDs are great, but actually they've been grossly insufficient. And then what happened was, people didn't follow the rules. But of course we never told them what the rules were, so you can't blame them. And the rules were, really only the producer of data should do really, really good validation. The recipient shouldn't. Because how can he say that? I mean, they need to be sure what is right. Yeah, but if they do that against exactly the same schema, that means, and that is why we are completely stuck right now, that with the tiniest change, everybody also needs to install that new schema. What they should have done, create their own data model, pick from the file what they need. They can check whatever they like about that, but ignore everything that they don't know. So I think that is an extremely important principle that we should have in the future. We wanted it 20 years ago, but this is not how it came about. Everybody creates their own model of the file based on exactly the same schema, and then innovation is almost impossible. So what you want to do is to do a very clear validation on the start. So the producer needs to do all his or her own health checks. So that is symbolized with this orange thing. I call them the blood tests. You look, if you go to the doctor, there is you get often a blood test, and it has it shows you, well, the certain values are above or within ranges that you want to do. So the ranges are known and the value are known. If it's outside the range, it's still not sure that you're very ill. And if it's in the range, you're still not sure that you're healthy, but at least it gives you an idea. So all these things need to happen before the thing is sent, and in the end you put the really critical thing, that is my red cross, needs to be done there, shouldn't even leave the producer. The recipient, however, what they need to do is only focus on the things they need. And the trouble is, what today every receiver does is repeat what the producer has done. So if we can somehow change that, and I think that's now no longer possible with the things that we have. And also I think the whole corpus that is robust enough to allow a few errors, as long as you fix them very clearly. So this whole thing about absolute things being absolutely right, it is a bit, you can say that again, it was a very true thing, but it became, it made us more and more irrelevant. We can change that, that would be good. Yeah, I'm going a bit from topic to topic, just to show the kind of things that I had in mind. So another reflection is, so I have been in the world of data modeling a long time, and many people came and went that helped me with that. And I think I see two approaches to that. Especially if you come from university, you have a lesson about data modeling. Then my experience is people are not modeling the data, but they are modeling the words or the world. And I think the last thing you should do is to be very pedantic about knowing what an affiliation is. So then you have people tell me what an affiliation is, a relationship between an author and an organization. And yeah, that is true. Unfortunately, how people use the data is not like that. If you look at across 100 million articles, you see some of these examples. So before I came, I thought maybe it would be fun to show you all sorts of things in live demo, but I don't know, the way this conference is doesn't allow that very easily. Here are some examples on the screen. So for instance, what you see here, the top, that's what people put in. So suppose you have / affiliation, or affiliation with angle brackets, and then it says Associate Professor of Pathology. So that isn't an affiliation, that is a job title. Yeah, that is terrible. And then this second example, that's even more ugly. Then somebody gave as their affiliation the departments, plural, of medicine and cardiology in India. Now, that doesn't tell me anything. I mean, in India, come on. How is it possible? Nevertheless, it appeared like this in an article. But so I don't want to fuss too much about the fact that it just says India. I wanted to say these are two departments, medicine and cardiology. It says so, departments, plural. And then the third affiliation is not even affiliation, it's a street address. Okay? So that is, now, yeah, so if you are a data modeler, you're deeply shocked about that. At least if you model the words. But I don't model the words, I model the data. This is what people do, so let them. And it needs to appear on the place where the affiliation is. It's fine. We also don't need to break it up in 5 pieces. That's what Elsevier people have told suppliers. No, you have to make it not A, B, C, but A, B, C, D, because there are so many departments in there. Not important. True that these are 2 departments, but irrelevant that we have to split it. And that is all thanks to the fact that we don't structure, but that we annotate. You can annotate this A with 2 organizations. No problem with that. You wouldn't be able to do that. Same with people. So you have, for instance, it can be so what people call an author is in general really just a byline who it was written with. For instance, you could have Pierre and Marie Curie. Okay, that is 2 people. But it doesn't say Pierre Curie and Marie Curie, which is Pierre and so it's a contraction. Again, let's put it in, I don't care that is not truly one author, it is a byline. We can always annotate it. And I think so many of the constructs that were created in our data model have been based on the idea that what is in an affiliation or an author is an affiliation or an author. But in fact, it's sometimes 0 or many. You have 0 and I have many. And here at the bottom is even a reference. Now, there's not one reference, there's a whole sentence. The sentence with, how many references are there? C, among others, already it starts. One book, another book. In total, there are 3 here at the top. Bottom one is 1. And this is a style that people use. Who am I to say that that style is wrong? So that's perfectly okay. So it is not the author's problem that in my DTD I have made it 3 or 4 different things. I think it's really hard to deal with this because somebody thought that the reference is always 1-to-1. I think that's another proof why we want to annotate. You just style it like this. Everybody likes it. That is what the style is. Nothing wrong with it to my mind, and you can indicate how many references you find there and what those references are. So that is another sort of motto that I have. Modeling the data is modeling the data. It says it all. And then one more thing. I'm reaching the end now of the almost of the reflection. So another thing that we keep forgetting is that an article is not alone. And with that I mean it, if we look at one XML file or one PDF file, one LaTeX file, or maybe it's a whole set of LaTeX files that produces this article, it's all from the author's perspective and maybe from the typesetter perspective. But in our process, a lot of things happen independently. For instance, something like a copyright notice, it completely follows its own workflow. So that is just an interaction via a website. So before you didn't know it, and at some point you certainly know it. Now, for years the whole workflow was stuck then because the source of truth of the files was at the beginning. People have to add it in and then push it through. These things should just be changeable in their own right. So we came up with an idea to allow stamping in the PDF file. This is, I think, a bit of a klutz, but it works. But this should be really sort of officially supported. That you can say, well, the copyright notice comes from another direction, and we can just put it in. It doesn't have to come from one place, but from 2 places. It should be possible. And another thing that we are not really well dealing with is the fact that multiple revisions come in. That happens a lot. So it is terrible. If you have an article, author, and we process it, Now, a lot of work goes on in this whole process. It's fantastic. But now a revision comes in. Now, of course, if the revision is huge, fine. But if the revision is tiny, then still it needs to go through all these steps. And maybe we even pay the same price for it. I think that is not right. I think there should be ways where you can really, that everything is optimized for differences rather than for new articles. I think, and one way that I like very much to do that is to make use of one of my favorite things. I'm unhappy that I didn't take the time to put a patent about that, is the reproducible identifiers. They can be helpful. A reproducible identifier is a hash of the content. It almost makes no sense. You take a content, you have to be a little bit smart to do that because it needs to be unique. And then this, let's say, paragraph ID, you create it from the text of the paragraph, maybe a little bit of its place as well to make it unique. And you go, what good is that? Because the tiniest comma, and it would change. Yes, that's the whole purpose. The purpose is not to get everything right or get a unique ID that works across all versions. It is to detect which ones are different. And all my annotations that I made about this paragraph will remain valid if the new version comes in and the paragraph had remained unchanged. I can just keep on referring to it, which normally there is this sort of, how do we call it, master-slave kind of a problem, that if you have an article in the way I envision it, an article with thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of annotations on the site, at the moment a new version comes in, all these 100,000 annotations suddenly are invalidated because you don't know for sure anymore what the text looks like. So they were all saying something about this fourth paragraph is about this and this topic, or this fourth paragraph contains information about this chemical compound. These are the kind of annotations that are there in about this paragraph. And the moment you get another text, now yeah, if the comma changes, maybe that has significance, then you do it again. That's the price you pay. That's what we are there for, to recompute. We shouldn't recompute anything that wasn't necessary. And then, I said it already earlier, the entire database matters. So I call that the ocean and the waves. The inflow are the waves. To navigate the ocean on the waves is already very hard. There's storms, there's high waves, there's ships sink. I mean, that's the process that many people are of. But underneath is 4 kilometers of water mass. That is my corpus, all the millions of articles that are out there. And they need to be correct too. They need to be constantly refreshed because they can't go stale. And another thing is a new data point can only be good if it is useful across the corpus. If you have a data point and we are so happy that we have it in this one article, it makes no sense to me if it is not consistently done. And there I want to go back to the picture of my granddaughter. She had it right in her mind. She would never edit a field that wasn't consistent in all the corpus. Precision and recall are everything. And then lastly, this is my last reflection. A big debate in Elsevier, maybe everywhere, I don't know, is should we abolish 2-column journals? I wish we had a whole session about it. Should we if only we could abolish 2-column journals. So now let me say here something shocking. Let's embrace 2-column journals. That is just to make people slightly unhappy. So what I did here to illustrate that is I took a page from Science Direct and I expanded it to my screen at home. Okay. So then I get this. So it is absurd in some sense. It's almost all white. But is it absurd? No, it isn't. This is what everybody wants. So you have this column. We should decide on a width. If you look, everybody else doesn't like to do that too. If you see how people implement blocks or I don't know, then the width is and you can scale it. Not that you widen it and then everything starts to reflow. No, you settle on a width. And everybody settles on. If you do that, then maybe we can even sort of get far closer between an HTML version and a PDF version. Nobody really wants it to so incredibly different. And after 20 years of experimenting, I think the product people from Science Direct, who interacted with thousands and thousands of consumers, realized that that was the case, that if you widen it, it shouldn't suddenly go all the way like that. Nobody wants it. There is a sort of natural width in it. And that would also solve all our problems with math breaking, because if you resize, suddenly the breaks will change. Not going to be really, really nice. Oppositely, too, if you have a very, very narrow column, you have to do a lot of work to split an equation array in small parts. Now, if the text is right, then it just looks silly that you have text and suddenly this tiny little formula. So I think that would also, if we would just forget about all this reflow and say, well, we just have one column, or it's an extremely long column, and then in a two column you can just put them next to each other. I mean, I'm saying it deliberately simplistically, but that is just to make the point. So I think these were my reflections. So I'm nearing the end. I can sum this up. So if I were asked to create a new DTD, next generation content standard that would last us for the next 20 years, what would be my requirements? No, I don't know if this is even an exhaustive list, but I thought I sum up what I just said. All it. First of all, it must center around annotation, not about markup inline. We just have some sort of HTML pages with as little information as possible. Then it separates content from annotation. So not really presentation from style, but content from annotation. It stays really close to the display. This whole idea that you have countless ways of presenting it hasn't happened. Nobody wanted it. And all these annotations are extremely strict. With that I mean you can validate them precisely. But as I had in my example about footnotes, references, or these affiliations, the way it looks doesn't matter so much to me. That is what I call flexible content with strict annotations. And it always must come with a language that you can allow to validate that what you need is there. Because our whole mechanism cannot work when everything is sort of half-hearted. We need to know if we expect this particular, my example of the label that needs to be there for cross-refs, then we need to be able to be absolutely sure that it is there. Otherwise, the product doesn't work. It has to have this idea about many people working on it. So call it stamping, call it what you like. And then it needs to be able to incorporate content revisions. So we have such a standard. I must admit, I'm not entirely sure yet if we should go there, but it is there as an official NISO standard, and it's called Content Profiles. Linked Data, CPLD, you can look it up on the NISO. It's an incredibly long number, and it has two components. One is Canvas, as they call it. This is the HTML5 rendering. Of course, you can do HTML5, and you can have a really nice typesetting here. I thought yesterday at the drinks, everybody was going on about perfect typesetting. Don't get me wrong, I love perfect typesetting too. I even love the Unni. Since I am friends with Facebook with Radhakrishnan, I follow the Unni posts of these cartoons, and then still it touches me that it says 18 to 21 July with a hyphen and not with an N dash. Oh, but I go over it. So I like perfect typesetting too. Don't get me wrong. But nevertheless, we need to be able to render a whole website in HTML5 also. And all our annotations in RDF, and in particular we do that in JSON LD. That is what this standard is. And then lastly, so it fits almost all these boxes. I think, well, it's really, really, you may say, can you really go without the parsing of an XML file? And say, no, my annotations are not just about semantic annotations. I also really meant the structure of the article. So here is the section, here ends the section. All these things we put outside of the file. And then we can use shackle schemas to check them. Because we do that, so we don't do that with DTDs anymore. We do that with shackle schemas in the JSON LD. We let the HTML do what it is. Don't get excited about putting even more nested divs into the HTML file. That's what many people do, div. And you might as well create a new DTD, because that is just silly that you use divs and you can't validate them with a class. Then you could better have created a DTD where you can validate it with a schema, no? Leave it alone and do your validation in a shackle schema. And in a shackle schema, you can make Sparkle queries within the graph. Now, that is so beautiful. You can do a Sparkle query. So my test about the cross-reference can be done there. You just check, you do a query, see, do all the destinations really have a label? Yes. So the difference is we may still need a V tool, validation tool. No, but it's far better. We can use an official language for that, shackle schema. So I think that's always better if you use an international standard rather than some homegrown system. So all these things tick the box. But there are also many things that aren't so clear. For instance, will it be extremely costly? That is what people said when we implemented HTML. Is that, I mean, everybody has so much tooling for what they have. And it's deeply embedded in our pipeline. So it's really not easy to do. We would all need to refresh our documentation. But I think that is the only alternative that I currently have in mind. And then what I'm hoping that in the coming days, also after the, we're here for 3 days, maybe if people have completely violently opposite ideas about this, I'm ready to hear them out. And maybe some of the things I said that weren't there are actually already there. And then I'm also really keen to hear it. I'm also really, really keen to hear all the other. The program looks super fascinating. So I thank you for your attention and 30 years of reflections about content processing in Elsevier.
Hey. So, does anyone have a question for Rob?
Thank you, Rob. It's a great presentation on the 30 years of reflection. I'm just thinking the CPLD. So, in the AI world, how CPLD going to be beneficial? That of now the world is changing, not ready to read the whole article or the whole book or something like that. They want to go into the particular topic or such that in the example, ChatGPT is raising the question, how we are going to connect CPLD with this particular thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there are two sides to it. So one side is that with LLMs and so on, really you see how easy it is to structure data. So you can give it a format and it will already do a lot for you. What we also see is that actual text has been increasingly important. So one product that we have is Scopus.com, and it contains all the abstracts of articles from 7,000 publishers. And those abstracts were actually not really so looked at so much. We were so concentrated on creating our knowledge graph, linking articles to authors and so on, that we neglected abstracts a bit. Now this has completely changed. The things that we want to do is present the information inside those abstracts. And so I think that is our answer to AI. So I think our own AI offerings need to be able to look at the data, ideally, therefore, to the original data. And in my idea, that would even be far better if we could look at the LaTeX file rather than some extract from it. So that should be the core, maybe, if it's a LaTeX document. So I think, no, and then another thing that's there is that, yeah, I think, or what is generally said in management of our company, there's a lot of opportunity for other people to be same players in the world that we have been, thanks to AI. But I think the difference that we can make is that we see that all these LLMs and whatnot, they all get, that we can make a difference thanks to the large knowledge graph that we have. And to work on that to get it super precise. You can get open access content really easily, but the only way we can do is to make it clear that there are so many issues in the data that we don't have thanks to 20 years of the kind of processing that helped for us. I don't see that go away so easily. So maybe one more question, and then actually we have a.
Hi, Rob. I was wondering if you would have anything to say about publishing in multiple languages, any challenges regarding annotation, tagging.
Yeah. So any thing in particular? So I think, of course, I didn't say that on the list, but all our standards. So I'm first of all, I'm starting from the starting point that Unicode is completely embedded everywhere. So different languages, different scripts shouldn't be a problem anywhere. So that is point one. So I think all the things that we should do maybe that should be a bulleted list for requirement for content standards. Is that we have no problem having But if you think about sort of articles that are themselves in two languages, or I'm not exactly sure what you have in mind, to support languages, I think should be a given that is possible. Actually, I think that theoretically is not a problem right now even. So I think that would be, but if you think about more fancy things like articles that are in two languages.
I'll give you an example. So in English, you would say page 3 out of 10. Some languages, syntax would go the other way. 10 would appear first and then 3. Syntax could differ across languages.
I see. No, yeah, I think, well, okay, I understand now what you mean. Yeah, so I think now that I should have listed that as the fallacies of sort of generating text from the text. So I think that is true. So that it's almost impossible to deal with all the combinations and permutations that would be there. So no, I think that's why I think what I thought should be my vision is that we don't worry about it. We have the text in its textual form. That is my point. So don't even try to capture it. It just says it in the other way around, or however it is in that language. But now you point at it. That is the whole thing about annotation. You point at it, and that assertion is in our standard vocabulary. It says it is page 3 or something like that. So that is not in a language. That is it's in its own language, as it were. It is in the annotation language. So I think that that is why I say separate content from annotation. That is precisely the thing. Yeah. So that's extremely good point. So I think, you have these things. So I hope that gives a bit of an answer. Maybe one more. Oh, SKV, that's dangerous.
Very nice that you have something dated 20 years back, still come around to talk about it and still relevant. But rare things lost. One of the problems that's where DTD has been that got that HTML elements still in it, like you have the DTD and the doc type declaration. So still got its roots in the old world. It's not moving fast enough to the new world in the sense of namespaces and modularity. And also, now that HTML5 has come, lots of standards like MathML, elsewhere MathML is a bit different from the W3C standard. So it's not nice to have two DTDs for the same standard, right? So there are still elements of SCART still managed, right? Because if you're a MathML implementer, MathML is different from the W3C standard. So I'm saying, so how much of Elsewhere's XML is still integrating with the standards, sense of the W3C standards also have moved from XML to semantic web and all that. So there's also movement, right? So movement and activity, right?
Yeah, so I think the I'll give a short answer because the time is almost there. So I thought, so I think one way that I interpret your question is that instead of going in a completely different direction, we could just sort of modernize and do all the things that we have left behind. So I think the standards haven't stood still, so that would be an option. But I think that to make adjustments to the present standard is associated with so many conventions that have been ingrained in people's head, that it is better that if you want to make a step change, to really make a step change rather than to try and fiddle around with what is there. Because if you, because people won't, I mean, it's almost psychological. The moment you make this sort of other change, then suddenly also things that have nothing to do with the schema will be open in people's head to change them. Whereas if you stick with the old schema, then and you make some adjustment or modernization, then I think they will apply, everybody will apply all the conventions that have been all there. So I think there's both a sort of modernization aspect, but also a pedagogical aspect in that when you change, people suddenly feel more free to think about new ideas. So I think that would also be an answer. But Eric, I think it's my time is up.
Thank you, Rob.
Okay.
Give applause again to Rob. So our next speaker is Eric Brown. He's going to talk about the Comprehensive Tech Archive Network. Good luck.
Good morning. Okay. Good morning. This talk is about the current state of C10. At first, I want to make a little survey. Who of you knows what C10 is? Please raise your hand. Oh, great. And who of you visited the website from C10 in the last 4 weeks? Oh. And who of you installs his or her packages from C10? Oh, I'm surprised. Okay, C10 stands for the Comprehensive Tech Archive Network, and I'm proud to say it's almost comprehensive, and it is an archive now. The archive is not publicly available yet, but it will. And Tech and Network is self-explaining. The most people know us if they visit the webpage, c10.org. And this webpage contains a catalog which contains almost, I think, everything about tech. And it contains a repository and a file and files which is slightly less than the catalog. I come back to this later. And what C10 does is the upload management. That means users, package creators can upload their software. We have the catalog. This is what you see via the web page. And we send out announcements and we discuss with authors and so on. And additionally, we are the place where more than 100 mirrors all over the world synchronize the software packages for faster access. Most of the packages are free software. These are the packages which are included in Tech Live. I don't know much about MIGTech, so I only talk about Tech Live, but MIGTech maybe have the same use. Okay, and the last point is the packages are the sources of the distributions, and the distributions are very actual. At least this is the case for Tech Live. So I'm wondering that you are installing from C10 directly, but for most packages you just have to wait a few days and they appear in Tech Live. Okay, this image shows or tries to show the connections from C10 to the outside of the world. I recommend to download the presentation from the conference's website. Yeah, it's a little hard to explain everything now. The gray part is C10, and the outer parts where the little icon with the people are the users, the package authors, and the purple part are the distributions. You may notice that there is a loop between C10 and the distributions. That's the case because C10 hosts also the distributions, but the distributions take the packages from C10. No. Okay, the history of C10 goes back to at least 1993. That's the earliest reference I found, article from George Dennis Greenwade. Don't get me wrong, the article or C10 isn't boring at all, it's just not the topic of this talk. I recommend to read this article because what you find there is to large parts this what is C10 today. The main difference is that the original concept from C10 was made for several main servers, and since long times, at least since 20 years, we just have one main server in Germany. More about the eventful history you find on the English Wikipedia page. And now about the current state of C10. The core team of C10 consists now of 6 people. The upload managers, the people who install the uploads and discuss with the authors. This is Petra, she's a retired teacher. Manfred is now a retired software engineer, and both do C10 since long times, I don't know how long. Then it's me. I work as a systems administrator for Linux at the Jena University in Germany. And we have Vincent Goulet. I was able to recruit him in the at the last conference in Prague, and he's quite active now. He's a professor for statistics from Quebec in Canada. And he's so active. If you read the announcements, you will already found his name. The webmaster and the programmer of the how he calls it, the portal is Gerd Neugebauer. He's also a retired software engineer. And recently, Oliver has joined. You may Oliver Kopp know as the author from the famous JabRef program. The system administration is done by Manfred and me, and the mirror management is mainly done by Petra. Mirror management means some mirrors retire, some mirrors are added, and is just a few entries in a database, but everything has to be checked. So the HTTPS certificates and so. Okay, we use hardware, of course. As I said, for a long time we had just one server in Germany, but it got unmaintainable, so we had to split it, and we took the chance and split it to smaller servers which are specialized for its tasks. The main server has a lot of storage space and memory. There runs the portal, which needs really a lot of memory, 10 gigabyte. And we have the mirror server, or the mirror redirection server, and this server has to be fast. And so it has a fast network connection and fast storage. And the original German machine had some more servers. It's in the parentheses, name service, web pages, or services from the German tech user group. LaTeX project and so on, but that's not the topic of this talk. It's moved away. We now have 2 servers for C10. Okay, there's, apart from the MaxMind, that's the name of the firm, MaxMind GeoIP geolocation software, which maps IP addresses to locations. We use just standard free software, but we had to program or write many applications and scripts by ourselves. The portal is written by Gerd Neugebauer in a Java dialect. I don't know its name. And the mirroring is in Apache handler. This is a part of included directly in Apache, also in the web server Apache for fast access. And for mailing list and the mailing list archive, we also use the standard software. This is Postfix and Mailman in our case. And you see this movie trailer-like screen. Go on the uniform resource locator credits, and you will get every detail you may want to know. Okay, where are the redirects sent to? We have more than 100 mirrors all over the world with hotspots, as you can see in North America, China, and Germany. And there are also some gray countries. The light gray means that there is no mirror at all. So we have in South America and Africa altogether only 5 mirrors. That means if you live in these countries or you have connections to there, try to convince them to open a mirror. It's not that hard. I come back to this later. And I'm happy to say that this map from the last week is already outdated, because on Monday this week we got a new mirror from a nice guy in Sofia, and is our first mirror in Bulgaria. So how do you become a mirror is described on the C10 website. Basically, you need a permanent internet connection and a fast network interface would be good. And you need a piece of software which synchronizes the data from the main server. In Linux, is it usually rsync? I think this program is also available for Windows, but I do not know. It's crucial that mirrors synchronize at least once per day. This is an old rule. I think you can do it every 6 hours or more often, but it's not. It makes no sense to do it more often than once per hour, because the portal is renewed every hour once. So once per hour is good. The mirror redirecting server is fast enough. If you run a mirror, do it so. We don't check the correctness and completeness of all files directly. This has to be done, I know. We just check a timestamp in the top level directory, and from this timestamp we derive the actuality of the respective mirror, and this actuality is displayed on the Mirmon page. If you go to this page, you see some are indicated as green. These are used for the redirector. Some are red. These are not used, but we hope that they will sync in the next time. They are still available, but not used for this time. They are indicated as red. So, as I said, we don't know. For the uploads, we check only for formal correctness. The formal correctness means for us file format, license is very, very important. Version indicators, which has to increase with every upload. That means we don't judge for the contents, except in some cases where someone loads his personal abbreviations. And of course, we use programs for checking. It would be too boring to do this every time manually. We use the program Package Check. It's available on C10. If you are an author, please use this program. If Package Check says your package is okay, we will not find any error either. And my experience is that users of L3 Build from the LaTeX project also send very good packages from a formal view. So I don't know if the users of L3 Build are used to make good packages, good in the sense of C10, or if it is L3 Build, but use L3 Build and your packages will be good, maybe. And C10 is always evolving. Since a few years, Gert is programming the new web page. He calls it codename 3.0. Maybe now it's another name. The name is a few years old. And he replaces outdated technology with modern frameworks. And especially the user face is cleaned and is made for smaller and bigger screens. And he will integrate the historical archive. It's not really historical. It reaches back 15 years, I think. He will release it in this year, I hope. Okay, and details about this. Gert is very open with his work. You find on the build page, there you find links to the source code at GitLab. The source code is open. You can join it. You can try the new portal software if you like. And Gert wrote very extensive documents. The UI design guide is about 300 pages. And there are many pictures of the upcoming version of the website. What C10 does is a recurring routine. It's not only the upload management, but we have to find for new packages concise description. This is the little text you find on a C10 page of a package, and one liner which teases, and suitable topics. And if you are a package creator, we would like if you give us these three things, description and topics, because we are not firm with every type of packages, and sometimes it's hard for us if it's computer science or specialized Chinese typography also to find the correct topics. And we have to check the links if they are still working, or some packages refer to other packages if the other packages still exist or are still in use. And another time I emphasize to use the supporting tools that exist. I mentioned L3 build and package check, and there are 2 other programs which I haven't used, but which are in use, as I know. These are C10ify and the C10 OMAD. Both run under Windows. Package check does not run under Windows, so maybe you will use one of the packages, the last one of the last 2 packages. Yeah, from time to time, some problems occur. It would be too easy if we just have the upload management. One problem is legacy work where the author is still active because some of the previously installed packages does not meet the actual standards. And then we have to talk with the author to update his package so it can be seamless installed in TUG Live and on C10, and some authors say it's too much work and they will give up their package, but we try to convince them and so on. It can lead to long discussions, but with in the most cases the package is converted to a format, to a modern format. A similar case are packages where the author gives up or doesn't update his or her package. So it may happen that bugs are detected but not corrected, or the TUG environment evolves like Beamer or from the LaTeX kernel itself. And I think that was the case with the famous, often used Metropolis Beamer package, which was then replaced by the Moloch package. And this is the hard solution we try to avoid. This is a fork. We try to avoid it because people have to change their documents to use the new package. Even if the new package has the same syntax, at least the use package command has to be changed. And so it's our preferred solution that authors mark themselves or let mark themselves as inactive. An inactive package can be taken over by every other author if it uses the LaTeX project, the LPPL. And we are asking us if we should remind package authors of their packages, but I'm not sure. If you think we should do it, just tell me. I'm on the side who thinks the authors know their packages. Okay. Now I told a lot about we have many packages. Now I show you some numbers. As you can see, the size and the number of files and directories is steadily growing. That's the case because almost nothing is deleted. And the size is for our times not that much, 24 gigabyte. But yeah, the most mobile phones could host C10 at the current time. The number of authors is also growing, but as life goes on, some authors have to leave. The institutions, which are also growing the number, are mostly user groups and especially publishers. As I said, the TEC catalog contains almost about TEC, and it's slightly larger than the packages that are hosted on C10. Larger means that for some packages we have just links to the GitHub or own web page. Examples for this is JabRef again. It would not make sense if Oliver and his team would update his software every time on C10. And some of the packages are then moved to obsolete. Obsolete means it is not included in TEC Live, but you still find it on C10. And packages get obsolete if the author wishes so, and for some very old packages which just do not run since many, many years. And for this, now I show the numbers. Yeah, you see it's growing all the time. Yes, one point I wanted to emphasize. We have more small special purpose packages. If you know my talk about the current state of C10 from Palo Alto, the last the last in-present conference before the pandemic, there I said that many solutions, good solutions, are held on forums like Stack Exchange, but now is the trend that authors, not always those who gave the answer at Stack Exchange, build packages for very small special purposes and load it to and upload it to C10. This is a good trend because you don't need always the large package for your tasks. And some of these small purpose packages like TIG stacks, you see the small duck, evolve to large packages. Now I use TIG stacks for this nice progress bar. That means if the duck reaches the right side, the talk is finished. Okay, here you have the numbers, and Manfred collected his data from the file system, from the files we have, from the catalog, and from the subversion commits to the file system and catalog. And here you can see how much we have to do, how much the C10 team has to do every year. The commits are constant, almost. Updates are more and more. The reason for this is that many people use GitHub or Git and release more often as in earlier times. The number of new packages is decreasing. I have some theories about this, but it's speculation. Maybe you have a theory too. I would be like your input about these numbers. And the lazy days are days without a commit in the subversion repository. As you can see, we don't have lazy days, and lazy in, I don't know the English word for this now, doesn't mean we are lazy, but it's just no commit. So in conferences, I am asked in informal discussions often questions more often than other questions, and I compiled them here and I made notes about this. Okay, why do we maintain our own mirror infrastructure? instead of using free software with MirrorBrain, like MirrorBrain, or commercial CDN like Cloudflare, which seems not to cost that much for a smaller network like C10, also compared to Netflix also. And the risks of a commercial CDN is simply it uses black box routing. We cannot be sure that your requests are routed, and the server may disrupt it by political sanctions. Maybe we had this in the last years between Israel and Syria, and between Russia and the Ukraine. Then we got messages from users from the Ukraine. They were redirected to Russia but could not access files there. And so we have our own redirection with exceptions of the sad cases of political disruptions. And we don't use the great software MirrorBrain because it's not maintained anymore, and bugs are not corrected. And it's more fun to correct or to fix the own bugs than bugs from other people. Okay, next question. Yeah, it's a similar question. Why do we run our own mail system? It's the cost, because the mailing list archives is now so large, we could not provide it via commercial provider for less money, but yeah, it's simply expensive, more than $100 per month. And another point is that the privacy in times where for the AI companies scrap every data they can get, we don't want to offer our many gigabyte large mail conversation to Google also, even if the company says they do not use it. They may change their mind. You had it on Reddit for a year ago. Reddit said it's all private. Now they sold their data, and we don't do it. We use it. We host it by ourselves. Yeah. Same question. Why do we host our own name servers? It's for. Yes, we can implement version control. We know when and who changed something in the name server. And additionally, it's easier to give people access via SSH on a server than to a web page of a provider, even if it's simpler for at the first look, if you use a web page, text files are better to handle. And another question, it's a question I'm happy about. How can people join C10 or help tech in general? And joining C10 is very time-consuming, at least for the upload management team. And so we recommend, write your own packages, or go on the repositories at GitHub or GitLab and try to fix issues or try to send them issues. People can work at Tech Live or MigTech, which are on GitHub too. And I don't want to send people back. You may try to join the upload team, but I warn you, it's a long-term task for years with tasks for every day. But if you have time just tell me after the conference or after this talk. Oh, and do you have any questions?
Yeah, so I saw the new design of the website, and I was just wondering if we have any plans to make it work with JavaScript free engines, free browsers, and the browsers that disable JavaScript, or some engines like Libre.js, if we have any plans to make it compatible with such settings.
Did I understand it correctly that you ask if JavaScript has to be used or not?
No, I meant if I disable JavaScript in my browser, will the new design... so the licenses are free software licenses for the new JavaScript, yes. But sometimes the detection programs don't detect the licenses properly. Like Libre.js, for example, sometimes fails to detect free software licenses, and then the site breaks. Or if I just manually disable the JavaScripts, some sites break. They don't load properly.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I have to forward it to Gert, our programmer, but I will do it, and if you send me a message, I can answer to you directly.
I would add to the previous question. For some, there is accessibility issue, because for blind people, JavaScript might not work well for text-based browsers like Linux and so on. So because main site is in Germany and they repeal laws, you probably want to have a text-only version without scripting and so on, which would be available for blind people.
Okay. Yes, I will tell this Gert too. And I forgot to say we have a programming application interface. You may still use this interface. The L3 build and C10omad use it too. And it should be possible to use this application programming interface for blind people too.
Any more questions?
Yes, I have. I have a suggestion and a question. The suggestion is about the inactive authors.
Yes.
Most Linux distributions have a policy to contact inactive authors. They try to reach by email or otherwise. And after a certain number of tries, they are considered really inactive, and somebody else can take over the package maintenance.
Okay, also two types of inactive. Okay, I remember this too. Thank you.
The question is, as Satan is really open, do you get bogged down by the AI crawlers nowadays, which is scraping everything?
Yes, this is a hard problem. You may have noticed that sometimes the page breaks for a few minutes. Now we have installed a monitoring software which monitors and restarts the page, the portal. Yes, that's really a problem.
And to implement any defense mechanisms like NUBIS?
We use fail to ban and simple network exclusion from the IP addresses of the scrapers.
Quick question.
Any challenges related to viruses?
What, please?
Viruses. Any challenges related to viruses?
I don't understand, sorry. Viruses? No. It may be possible that people upload viruses, but it never happened until now.
Okay.
Yep.
Again, a great applause for Eric Brown. So now we'll have a pause for 20 minutes. Please be back before 11 o'clock.